Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there, welcome to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. You are in for a treat today because my co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, my friend for life, the person that I go to when I get in trouble, Dr. Dave Stoop. You're going to hear from him, and he's going to be talking about understanding and knowing what to do when someone you love has an addiction problem. Way back in 1990, there was a proposal put before some people at Tyndale for a recovery Bible. And when they looked at the proposal and they had a big meeting, they decided we're going to publish this Bible. And so at the end of the meeting, someone asked, who will call Dave to tell him that we're going to do his Bible? And half the room said, wait a second, Dave? What do you mean? They said, aren't we looking at Steve Arterburn's proposal? Dave and I had submitted simultaneous proposals for the same project, and half of the room didn't know the other half was dealing with a different proposal. Well, of course, they asked, I wonder if they would work together. We had already written books together, and so when we got the phone call, of course, we said yes. Now, I have to tell you, because of us working together, the Life Recovery Bible is what it is. I mean, Dave found a person that coordinated Bible scholars in seminaries and Bible colleges all over this country, maybe even the world. And the unique thing about those Bible scholars, they all were recovering, either in Al-Anon or a codependency group, or they had had an addiction problem. And that's why prisoners all over and folks in recovery groups, they read those notes by those scholars and they feel like they're speaking right to me. Well, of course, many of you know over 3 million copies of that Bible have sold. Prison Fellowship just last year gave away about 90,000 Bibles to prisoners. Any prisoner that wants one, Prison Fellowship will give it to them. Many people have gone into a Salvation Army and found the Life Recovery Bible to be the Pew Bible. And if you don't have one, they're not very expensive at all for the little version. They even have the big print. And you can find out about that, or you could order one at newlife.com or 1-800-NEW-LIFE. But Dave is the foundation behind the Life Recovery Bible, and he's one of the greatest, wisest men, most consistent person I've ever known. I can always count on him. So I hope you'll enjoy what he has to say. Maybe it's what you needed to hear because somebody in your life literally is struggling with an addiction problem. And this is going to be the help that you've been looking for.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Hi, I'm Dave Stoop, and I'm part of New Life Live as a co-host that you've heard me on the radio and maybe see me on television. I want to talk to you about what to do when someone you love is alcoholic or addicted. Because what I've found over the years in working with people this way is that many times they think the person with the addiction, either to alcohol or to drugs or to gambling or to sex or to shopping, there's all kinds of addictions. They think it's the problem of the person. It's not my problem, it's their problem. And that's a mistaken place to begin. If you want to get help for yourself and for them, you have to look at it in a different way, that this is not just something that is affecting one person, it affects the whole family. We have a son who is recovering from drug addiction. He's been 29 years clean and sober. He had 15 years of drug addiction, and this was back in the days when there wasn't much help available. In fact, one of the things that happened during that time was the Phoenix House moved into Orange County from New York, and it was like somebody who knew what they were doing finally arrived in Orange County. But he didn't stay very long there. We tried out about 12 different programs before finding one that really started to help all of us in the family. And the turning point was we were in a group with other addicts and alcoholics and other family members. Nobody from our family was in our group, and everybody in our family were in separate groups. A young man sat across from me, and I introduced myself. Not a very comfortable setting for me. I'm a psychologist, and I'm used to running groups, not being in groups. But I said, I'm here because my son has a problem. And this young man almost came off his seat. And he said, that's what my dad said when he came the first time. He thought he didn't have a problem. He said, you're going to find out you're here because you have a problem. And he was right. He was a young alcoholic. He was able to pass the sobriety test with a .28 blood alcohol level. And he knew what he was talking about, and we learned that he knew what he was talking about. That it's a family problem, it's not an individual problem, and that means the resolution is going to be a family resolution. Everybody has to get into the process. And the place that I always make people begin is to get educated. We have a lot of myths surrounding both alcoholism and addictions, whether they're chemical addictions like drug addiction or process addictions like sex addiction or gambling or spending, cutting. There's all kinds of, there's even the addiction to video games that some young people have. How do you get educated? Well, we were in this program that was an educational program because when I went through my doctoral training, there was nothing, no classes required or even offered on alcoholism or addictions. In fact, it was probably 10 years after I was licensed that the board finally said you have to take continuing ed. But I was educated because I went to a speaker meeting every Monday night for 6 months. That's a lot of speaker meetings. I heard stories that this was 30 plus years ago, and I still remember some of the speakers and what they said and how profound it was in terms of my understanding of addictions. We have a hospital here that treats people for detox, and they put on a speaker meeting every Saturday night. So I tell people, get to that meeting, take the whole family, go out afterwards and talk about what you heard. You can call Alcoholics Anonymous. You can find them on the internet, and you can call them for a list of or a list of meetings in your area. And there will be, in that list of meetings, there will be speaker meetings listed. I'll tell you next time about a man who was alcoholic and didn't have any resistance to defining himself that way after attending speaker meetings. A speaker meeting is one where you go in, you sit down, you say nothing. They have a list of speakers that come through on an itinerary, all dynamic, all educational. You listen to the speaker, and when he's finished, you get up and walk out, and nobody talks. You don't have to say anything to anybody. It's purely a time to go and sit and listen. I remember a priest was speaking at one of the meetings, and he was describing a time when he was in Mexico, and there was a fountain in this restaurant that had margaritas. You just go and fill your glass as many times as you want. And he had to leave, and he talked about his addiction to alcohol. He said, when they put me in my casket, I have a feeling that my addiction will sit up and say, come on, Joe, let's have one more for the road. And that's how powerful an addiction is. And it's important to understand how powerful it is and to do things that are counter to what makes a lot of sense to do. We tend to deal with problems like alcoholism or addictions logically, and that's the worst thing we can do. And so the education begins with speaker meetings, and then it moves on to attending Al-Anon. And when I tell someone to go to Al-Anon, I say, don't keep it a secret. Announce that you're going, and announce that you're going to get help for yourself, because that's really what you're doing. I've seen families transform because the parents and some of the kids start going to Al-Anon, and they learn more about the power of an addiction and the hold that it has on the person and how they have to behave differently so that they can become part of the solution rather than part of the problem. So don't hesitate to do that. When we were in our program, the final program that really got us involved as a family, we had to be in family therapy. Our son had to be in individual therapy. We had to go to speaker meetings. We had to go to Al-Anon, and we had to be in our group. And it was like a all-point bulletin. You know, everybody was involved, and everybody was overly involved. But it started the process of turning things around because I started to behave in ways that I was resisting behaving. One of those ways, I was always protecting my son from the legal system, and I had to stop protecting him and let him face the consequences of his behavior. And I even pressed charges one time, which I couldn't have done without the support of people who understood what I was dealing with and the power that an addiction has over a person's life.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Stoop. I'm one of the co-hosts on the New Life Live radio program. And we're talking about what to do when someone you love is addicted or alcoholic. And I was talking in the last segment about, I just started to talk about the alien that takes over the person who is addicted or is alcoholic. There's the reason you don't do logical kinds of responses to what's going on is that they're not living in a world of logic anymore. In fact, one of the things I had to learn and understand was that when my son talked to me, in many cases it was not my son talking to me, it was the addiction talking to me. And it was like an alien had taken over his whole being and now took residence in him. And you talk to him, it's almost like demonic possession, but it's addiction possession. And so he would sometimes be so belligerent and so hurtful that I remember one time in an emergency room, he was so upset and so belligerent that I had to sit down because I almost passed out from realizing this is my son talking to me. And then I learned that no, that was not my son talking to me. That was the addiction talking to me. And the addiction had taken over his life and taken over his thinking and ruled now in place of him. The other thing is that you run into is going to be denial. The thing I had to learn about denial was that it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought denial was his attempts to fool me into thinking there was no problem. And I had to learn that no, denial operates for the sake of the person who is the addict or the alcoholic in terms of their denying to themselves that they have a problem. That's why they say things like, I've got it under control, don't worry about it, everything's okay, I got it under control. And that's the addiction kind of throwing you a curve so you don't respond to what's going on in the reality of life with that person. So that's the importance of getting educated, learning how to respond differently to your loved one who is addicted or alcoholic, and learning how to change the course of your own thinking so that you begin to think in terms of them being possessed by an alien force that is against everything you stand for, and all it wants to do is to continue the addiction. There used to be the thought that you let them hit bottom, and a lot of times, especially with drug addiction, people die before they hit bottom. And so the answer is to provide an intervention. An intervention is a family event that confronts the addict, alcoholic with the reality of the good things that they have done before they became addicted, and then the hurtful things that they've done since they become addicted. Now, it's very important that you not try to do this on your own, because many times when people try to do an intervention on their own, it's a missed opportunity because they really haven't understood how to do it. You need to get a professional interventionist, somebody who's been trained in how to help a family do an intervention. One of the things that they will do is they will make sure that you're fully educated in terms of what you're dealing with. Another thing that they will be doing is taking you through a rehearsal where you read letters, and he wants to make sure that the letters are written in the proper form. And the interventionist will also then be the one who offers the opportunity for the person to enter into treatment. If you're concerned about the expense of an interventionist, sometimes you make arrangements for a rehabilitation center that you will use, and they have their own interventionist that they use, that they know that the person is going to be coming into treatment with them. They cover the costs of it. But the important thing is that you get everybody that cares involved, not just the family, but the boss, the best friend, the others who are concerned and interested in the person getting help, getting treatment. And all that is designed to do is to get them into treatment so that they can begin to detoxify and they can begin to rebuild their life in a way that is addiction-free. I remember one time talking with one of the nurses at the treatment center, and she was saying how people come back the second and third time, but each time they come back, they're at a different level of growth. There's also times when doing an intervention doesn't work. The person doesn't go into treatment, and everybody thinks, oh, it's hopeless. It's not hopeless, because I've talked with families where the person who was addicted or alcoholic didn't respond to the intervention, but not too long afterwards decided on their own to go into treatment because they realized that it's like they had to think it through, and not everybody is willing to make the commitment at the time, but they stay the course because it's not over until it's really they're in treatment. Now, what happens in treatment? Why treatment? There are some people who just quit cold turkey. They say, well, I won't ever use or I won't ever drink again, and they make all these promises, and they do it for about 5 or 6 months, because that's about how long willpower works. And then what they didn't realize was how powerful the addiction was, and now they relapsed. Some hold on for a long time, but I've talked with family members who say it's really no different than when they were drinking or using, because it's like they're what's called a dry drunk. Dry drunk is somebody who never got into treatment, who just stopped, and all the alcoholic addictive behaviors continue. And I've even had some say, I wish they would go back to drinking again, because at least that was predictable and comfortable and familiar. But don't give up. Treatment is an educational process for the addict or the alcoholic. They need to understand that they're up against an enemy that is more powerful than they are, and that total abstinence is what's required. And that there's also a need then to build character to become the person they were meant to be. One of the things that happens when a person uses or starts drinking excessively is that they stop growing. So a kid who starts drug addiction at age 13 may get into treatment and in recovery 10 years later at age 23, but he's really only 13 years old emotionally. And you've got to finish growing up, and that was a process that begins in treatment and continues in what we call recovery, and we'll talk about that next time. People say, why recovery? Well, the simple answer is because that's where the growth that never happened in the person emotionally and characterologically needs to take place. And it's also the best way to guard against relapse, to get into a serious process of recovery. Now, there's been research done on this, and that's what's interesting. There are 4 factors in recovery that eliminate the probability or minimize the probability of relapse. One of them is going to meetings. There's one of the things that will happen in treatment is you start going to meetings, and then you continue going. And they have found in looking at treatment programs, and because they could never do research on AA itself because it's anonymous, but they can do research on people who go through treatment programs. People who go to 4 meetings a week for the first period of time are the ones who are successful in their recovery. Do 3 meetings or less, and you run the high risk of relapse. Second is that they get a sponsor, somebody that they're accountable to. So part of recovery is to get a sponsor who's going to guide you through the dangers and the probabilities of relapse to successfully navigate that stage. Number 3 is you got to become helpful. You got to care about other people. And number 4, and this was an interesting one, is you need to develop a personal relationship with God. They found these 4 factors are the 4 things that mark a successful sense of recovery. And going to 4 meetings a week, getting a sponsor, being helpful, helping set up meetings, doing little things like that, and then developing a personal relationship with God. And people resist this, especially Christians resist the 12-step meetings. But that's what they've found as being the key, and that personal relationship with God is also the key. If you need help, call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. I told you Dave was great, and he is. He's a very special person. He's really had some health struggles recently. And I would ask for you to just stop whatever you're doing and pray for him, because he needs prayer. And Jan, his wife, one of the most amazing people, just full of life and love for others. She's really struggling too, because they have quite a relationship. Been an inspiration to me for a lot of years. So please pray for Dave, that he will be strengthened and he'll be back on radio with us one day soon. Let me close with a scripture here I want you to focus on. It's one that most people have heard. It's Isaiah 40:31. And here's what it says. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. A lot of people, it's still a mystery to them of why it's such a big deal to say that you're powerless over something. Because when we say, I have an extreme limitation that makes me unable to fix this problem in and of myself, if I admit that, now I quit trying. And I'm open to something that does have the strength, to a solution that just might work, and it's not me. The sick brain that gets me in trouble is not going to be the sick brain that gets me out of trouble. So I realize I can't, and then I come to understand how amazing God is and can, and then when I turn my life over to Him, I have new strength. That's the joy, that's the power, that's the everything of surrendering to God. And the whole world opens up. When a person is dependent on alcohol, drugs, sex, pornography, anything like that, you have a very small world. It's your addiction, fulfilling your addiction, and keeping it from the rest of the world, full of shame. But when you open up and let God do for you what you can't do for yourself, you have strength beyond anything you ever dreamed of. If you've never made that decision to surrender to God, maybe this is the day for you to experience that kind of surrender. Thank you for watching Life Recovery Today. So grateful to be with you. And as I said, if you need one of those Life Recovery Bibles, they're not very expensive at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God bless you. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.